Yeah, I am open.
I just have like some time to kill, so I'm like, how does this go?
Perfect. Yeah, my name is Reed. Nice to meet you.
Reed Alejo, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How do you spell that?
Alejo.
Gotcha. Alejo.
Yeah.
I'm just resetting my board here. Had a great talk with Riley. Had a third talk with him. He's a great guy.
I can't really hear you. What's that?
Yeah, let's use headphones.
All right.
It's easier to hear. That's better.
Yeah, it is way better.
All right, yeah, so Alejo. My name is Reed.
Reed.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I just finished my third talk with Riley. We talked about the death penalty. It was fun.
It's interesting.
Have you seen me here before?
No, it's first time.
First time? Yeah, I try to come on Wednesdays. So many post-it notes now. Cool. So, yeah, did you see the topics over on the board over there?
When I first saw it, but then like I forgot what they are.
I like to leave it open, really. So what I'm doing here is like to chat with people about what they believe and why, and help them think through things. Let them pick a topic, and I ask Socratic-style questions to help them think through it, to help me learn, to help us both collaborate and figure out whatever we're talking about, if it's true.
And what's your background?
I'm not a student here, just a random guy. I go out to various places here in LA to practice this. This is was my hobby. Now it's more of my main thing I do. I'm president of a nonprofit called Street Epistemology International now.
Okay.
Helping people learn and practice this thing.
So I guess my question is, where do you ground your basis for like having these conversations? Like, did you study some type of philosophy? Did you study some type of like psychology, or is it just more like you're having a free conversation? It's
like a grassroots movement that started with a book in 2013 and then another book in 2019, How to Have Impossible Conversations, from a philosophy professor. So we're trying to figure out better, how to have better conversations in these polarized times.
Cool.
So it's not, there's like two goals. It's like learning the truth of something and also figuring out how to have conversations. It's like those two parallel things.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a philosophy major, so that's why I've been kind of asking.
Amazing.
I just noticed the question, so it's like I know those are like some just like topics that no one has a specific answer to, but is very controversial no matter how you slice it.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
What are some interesting philosophy topics you like to talk about?
Metaphysics, because I feel like it kind of goes with the questions about whether we have free will or not, and then if we do, that has like very wide implications on, I believe it has wide implications on how we generate our beliefs, and then how we generate beliefs, generally speaking, is how we conduct ourselves in the physical world.
Gotcha.
So
it looks like we're in that time of day where the sun is about to come out for you. I have an umbrella if you want me to put it up.
This is good right here so far.
Yeah. Also, the sun hits this a certain way and it gets like overheated.
I mean, if you want to move,
give me like a minute and I'll set this umbrella up and we can talk about metaphysics.
Go for it. Yeah. Is this a live stream or something?
Yeah. Got a card there.
Cool. Well, for anyone watching, I am a senior here at UCLA, and I am also a professional race car driver.
Professional race car driver?
Yeah.
Amazing. What kind of race car?
Rallycross.
Rallycross.
Yeah.
Is it like a more dirt, road type thing?
It's a crossover of dirt and tarmac. So if you're from LA and ever watch X Games, it's when they used to race in the Coliseum or at the Nokia Center, when they would have like the Ford Fiestas, like going through the city and then jumping over like these jumps from one section to another.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Intense. Awesome. Want to plug in anything about that?
Yeah, so I was going to plug that in. Follow me, peeps, at AF Racing 126.
Peeps AF?
No. I'm just like peeps are people. Yeah, everybody out there.
AF Racing.
126, yeah.
126. Gotcha. I will have the peeps check out. Awesome. All right, I rarely have that deep of discussions about metaphysics, but I'm open to that. Is the question like, what is the best metaphysics? Is that a thing you talk about? And then there's options for that?
I would go more about like free will. Does free will
Does
exist?
free will exist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are things determinate?
Yeah.
Or
is determinism true?
Yeah, exactly.
Does free will, which one is best to talk about?
They're both
thing.
one in the the same.
It's like a reason for that
Mm-hmm.
free will. Does free will exist? Okay. You have a confidence scale there. If all the way to the right is absolutely yes, it exists. Or to the right, absolutely no, it does not exist. Not sure, absolutely yes. Where's your current confidence about it?
Well, I feel like my confidence is derived off like a philosophy that I just come to understand. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a difficult question because you're asking me a degree of confidence or like how confident I am in something that I can't like generally on a belief, you know?
Yeah, how's the universe determining you would be right now for your confidence?
Exactly. But I mean, I think I can give a fairly compelling answer that will give somebody a good amount of, let's say, this type of confidence that free will does not exist.
Okay, that would be towards yes. Let's make it towards no on this side.
Okay.
So whatever that is on the opposite side.
Sorry.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Just leaning towards no.
Yeah.
All right. And what do we mean by, this is the question, what does free will mean?
Okay, so very loaded question, but let's just try and tease it out. So when I say free will, I'm asking more in like the sense of like autonomy, like willing. So let's say you see this drink that I have right here, and if you're not thirsty, well, you're not gonna grab it, right? Because you're not thirsty. That's one sense, because your body is gonna need that liquid. So that would be one reason to quench your thirst. Another would be just out of pure appetite, just like gluttony. You're thirsty, and you for no other reason, right? We can suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it may seem like you're making that choice, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But the more we look at things, the more things are causally explained. That's where I make that decision or that statement that I don't think things are as they appear, and more so our free will isn't really necessarily there how we consider it.
Yeah, so is the definition the ability to choose? I don't want to use freely in the definition. What is that? What do we mean by that? The ability to choose? I don't know how to say it without using the word.
Yeah, so basically I'm trying to exclude instances of like manipulation, coercion, lying, cheating, things like that, because I can manipulate you to do something which you may think is in your free will, like your own action to decide whether you do that or not. But in reality, I've just manipulated the circumstances or the facts or the environment to make you do such a thing.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. So the ability to choose without coercion or manipulation.
That's what I mean by free will. So having that actual thing.
Does like
what? Like for example, let me ask you this.
It's another. Go ahead.
What do you think you have like absolute control of in doing?
Not much.
So then you're you're arguing towards what I'm saying.
Yeah. I would say
not much.
Not much. I'd be there.
Why not completely then? What's stopping you from saying
maybe,
full on?
Maybe the words we're using aren't the best words to use.
Okay.
Or maybe the definitions are, depending on how we define it. I'm hearing free of the universe's causes and randomness. Like, I don't know what that means to have freedom from that.
Like, okay, so what do you think you have freedom of? Like, is it you have freedom to think? You have freedom to do any particular action you want in that instance?
Yeah, depending on the level of abstraction, like the level we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Not much freedom at all. But practically, I have a lot of freedom. Yeah. Because of the complexity of what I am and my environment. Yeah.
So you're saying the complexity of who you are and the environment is what gives you freedom. So I'm taking it to be the case that the environment and who you are as a person affects in such a way that it can be random in a moment-to-moment case, right?
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's too much input to have a predictable output.
But because something is unpredictable doesn't mean that it's not the case. That just means we can't understand
it. It could be
it.
completely predictable in principle.
That's only if we completely understand it. But you're kind of going the opposite way, saying that because we don't understand it, it doesn't ground it.
Yeah, it's an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of free will.
So then, if it's an illusion, it doesn't exist.
Not really, no. That's why I'm not a big fan.
But you're still hung up there. Like, where is the point where you're like, okay, we do have free will? It's in the moment.
If we play around with language, then it comes into it, maybe.
I think we can like just disregard language. I know like it's hard to talk about this with like language because of like certain definition and meanings and referencing to what, but apart from that, like there's still the issue is still there. It's not like language is the thing that's hindering this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess another thing that's keeping me from all the way is just an uncomfortable thing to think about.
That's just the biggest thing, right? That's the biggest thing that people have, I think, generally speaking, maybe in the West. And that leads you to have a certain belief about how you go about behaving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really something so intrinsic to yourself that most people are blind to it. And if you're blind to this reasoning on why you behave, then some of your values can be warped or misunderstood, and you just have this confusing ideology of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of why I'm out here. I don't think people have the choice to, once they are confronted with their reasoning, they don't have the choice but to like rethink it and potentially be persuaded by having the argument laid out there in a clear way.
Yeah.
Like if there's a clear contradiction in what people are saying, whatever we are, it doesn't go well for our psychology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then on that note, it's sometimes it's harder to investigate your own questions rather than hearing, just telling you what the answer is, right?
Yeah, many people don't get the opportunity to really lay out what they believe and why.
I don't think many people consider it. Why?
Yeah. Which I like to give people the opportunity to do. And yeah. But so this question, you're different from me in confidence. What's keeping you from going all the way?
Oh, my view of like physics and like science. So there's this view in quantum mechanics where I'm probably gonna like be butchering this, but it's this other theory about, I think it's called the Boolean theory of how to like of how they're doing the mathematics for this theory. So essentially what they're saying is in quantum mechanics, it's that, you know, the normal picture that we see of an atom, how there's the nucleus in the center and then there's electron and protons just like not moving, but they're just static.
Yeah.
So that conception is what physicists are now considering is wrong. Rather that it's not, particles aren't stationary, rather they're just constantly, randomly happening.
And it's
but
more probability space.
Correctly. But when we observe them, we see them act in such a fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a little bit of a mystery there, but where I'm going with that is that same like logic of this theory where things are determined to happen, but we just can't predict how they're going to happen, is what grounds my idea that we live in a deterministic world if we adhere to these physical laws and theories.
That sounds like a reason against free will.
Correct. And I
What keeps you from going all the way down? So what is pushing you that way? What's the reason for that?
Oh, and like definitely saying it is like semantics and explaining it to some people. You know, it's like my conception of like certain words are going to be different. It's just it's a loaded question with loaded terms.
Yeah.
That's why I was like,
Yeah.
right there. I feel like I'm giving more of an explanation for it rather than my own answer.
So it's more about just a lack of clarity on what the words mean, or the totality of the argument in terms
The
of
totality of the argument, because it's so complex. Some people think that free will is, even if I'm like, you want some water, you want some lemonade, and you still choosing to say no or yes is like somehow your own ability to do that. But like just me doing this is like I'm influencing you to think of this. So like, is that really free?
Yeah, let's hypothetically, how could we test this if we could have like magical testing powers and we could do anything we wanted to do to test it? What would be the best way to test it?
To see whether
humans have free will.
I think that's something we can't really test right now with the technology that we have, because our will...
If we did have the technology.
But I mean, here's where the question is, our will is something that is not observable. Like, we can't pinpoint it, you know? Like, I can pinpoint a radio frequency and I can be like, okay, when it's at this frequency, it's going to do this, you know? I can observe that somehow, like through mathematics or empirical evidence. But you can't really do that with will.
What if we had a time machine? Would that help in solving this question?
I mean, if the time machine implies we have like the technology to do something like that, I guess.
The ability to rewind the clock and see if you would have decided to sit down here or not.
I think that just proves my point. Like, we don't really know how it's going to happen, but the fact that it does happen signifies that there was no other way that it could have happened. Therefore, because there is no other way it could have happened, it is deterministic.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not giving a reason why, because I don't know why. There could be many reasons. But what I am saying is what I am doing, like the reasons for what I am doing.
Yeah.
Which is it's really tricky to understand the differences between like a what question and a why.
What would it mean for people to have free will?
What would it mean for people to have free will? I think philosophically speaking, it would be for them to just like, you know, like just like a trait of humans or animals, right? There's like this animal pack instinct, go with the crowd, right? That's why there's all these adages like the black sheep, the one person that stands out from the crowd. So I think if we have more of that free will, people would have more of an inherent capability to be a self-fulfilling person in the way that is self-fulfilling, which is whatever that person is, rather than being influenced by other things. Because if you're influenced by other things, how free are you? Okay. Are you like making and doing choices because of your own rationale, or you're just influenced by other factors and you're just oblivious to them?
So if you have a goal, a person with free will will be able to get to their goals virtually always, or virtually all the time?
So probably I think the way to say it was, by virtue of pursuing free will, you would be having free will. Because to have free will is like just to pursue it. Okay. Like there is no definition other than what it is, right?
Yeah.
Because if not, then there is no. It's like a very black or white. There's free will or there's none.
What if people are determined to be that way?
To be which way?
To have
like
a more of a
that type of view on life?
Yeah, that type of view and that ability to pursue their goals without being distracted or like
Mm-hmm.
manipulated?
What's the question? What if people can have this type of view?
What if they're completely determined to be that way? Does that mean they have free will?
When you're saying determined, are you using it in the sense that this person is consciously telling themselves, is aware of themselves that
They couldn't have done
this is my
otherwise.
this is my but where is the reasoning? Is it because they are deciding to do it, like having conversations with them, no, this is my goal, blah blah blah, or it's like just like life circumstances led them to those things?
The circumstances of reality made them that way.
Okay, so then your environment and physics, right?
Physics, yeah.
Create influence you. And the question is what exactly? I forgot. What if a person is that way?
Yeah, if a person is pursuing free will and getting to their goals without being manipulated or whatever that was defined as,
Mm-hmm.
could that whole process still be completely determined without their control?
Yeah, it seems like it's more of a meta question. What you're asking, like.
Yeah, I'm asking, what would it mean for people to have free will in a universe like ours?
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking it from like a philosophically standpoint, and in the sense, okay, what does it mean to have free will?
Okay.
I want to do X for my reasoning. And it's not like I want to do X for your reasoning, right? That could be like a really brute way of saying like my choosing to do this, like my free ability and choosing to do X, right?
Yeah.
So what would it mean for someone to have that, to fall into?
I think people do have that. Is that if that's what we're defining as free will, then yeah, people do have that, and free will does exist. But is that really what we're talking about when we mean does free will exist?
No, I don't think so. How about you give me an example, and I'll try and like talk about that then.
Like you walked by here, you
Yeah.
sat down.
Yeah.
Did you have the ability to do otherwise?
Did I have the ability? Yes. To do otherwise? Yes.
Did you?
Yeah. I could have come here or not.
From like a cosmic perspective of the universe.
That's my whole standpoint. It's like there had to be. I could argue that there was an influence of me wanting to start a podcast and then seeing some mics here and you having a conversation and interesting conversation topics. Like all that could have slightly influenced me to come here.
Yeah.
So that's like proving my point.
And if time travelers wanted to test free will, and they're like, these people sitting over here, they have a time machine, and they could just rewind the time as many times as they want to, and they just observed you always sitting down every time, millions of times. Is that evidence that we don't really have free will? But what if you kept walking one time? What would that mean for the time travelers to try to test this question?
Does free will exist?
Yeah. If you kept walking half the time,
and the other half I sat down.
I wouldn't think we were as determined as we thought we were.
If I didn't sit down.
Yeah. If half the time you kept walking or half the time you sat down, I would not be here. I would be like here.
Right. So here we go again into kind of like the discussion that it's just because it is the case, or the fact that I'm saying that this is the case or that this is what we're happening doesn't mean that I know the reasoning why.
Uh-huh.
So just like I could have either sat or walked.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my like it just depends on what side of the argument you stand on. Let's say we're arguing against it, right? Against free will. We can argue that I had these factors that I named out earlier influence me to sit here, right? But if we're arguing that free will doesn't not exist, so then that would mean I would have just like free control of making every decision. I would argue that maybe then the stimuli of the environment wasn't strong enough for me. But just because it wasn't strong enough for me doesn't mean that I didn't have the ability to go to that attraction or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like the proximate cause versus ultimate cause.
Exactly, yeah.
We have plausible cases we can give for why you sat down here. You wanted to talk about stuff. You're a philosophy student. You want to do a podcast. You're interested.
Yeah.
So that's the approximate case for why this is happening. Yet this is another language issue. We're not really interested in proximate causes. It's like, or are we? Is that all we care about?
I think most people do. They want to know like a black and white answer. Is it this case or is it that case? But that's why I go back to like where my beliefs stand from is the like physics and metaphysics. This is that same theory. Like there's this idea of how the most foundational particles in our universe, which are called quarks, how they operate. And so when they're like hovering or however you want to call them around the atom, we can't. It's this thing called they're in superposition. So if I'm not like butchering it wrong, it's like one thing could be in like it could super like position itself over the other one, if that makes sense, when you're observing it. So this is like the correlation that I'm trying to make with metaphysics and this quantum theory view and the determinism of whether we do have free will or not. It's in when we're looking at this view of metaphysics, we can analyze and predict where these we can't predict where this certain particle is going to be, but we can get a reading or we can get a result. Does that make sense? Like we can't predict where it's going to be, but we can get a result. So we can analyze it.
Yeah. And we can model the results and certain results have certain probabilities.
Exactly, but we can't pinpoint one exactly because of this superposition and like how everything works, because when we look at it, when we go to observe it, it acts in a completely different way than when we don't observe it. So my correlation or the analogy that I'm trying to do with that is that my decision here, this is my decision, but whether it could have been to not sit or go get ice cream or go to my doctor's appointment, that's like something that like superpositioned my other drives.
Okay, so
Does that make
you're making
sense?
an analogy to yourself sitting down here to like a quark.
Yeah,
being
because
somewhere.
we are made of these things. Like we have to, by definition, we follow these same laws and properties that these quarks do because we're made of the same matter. That's why I my belief is grounded in the physics, because that's like the reality of how things operate.
Does that follow? Because we're made of something that behaves a certain way, does that make us behave exactly the same way as the individual parts?
That's what I'm trying to establish.
Does that rule always apply?
I would argue, yeah, because if we're made of matter, anything else in the world is made of matter. The foundational blocks of matter are these quarks.
Yeah.
Therefore, we operate in the same fashion.
Like, does water behave the same way as hydrogen?
Well, water is a form of, or hydrogen, you know what I mean? Like, when you strip everything down, it's all going to be atoms, right? And so what's the foundation of atoms? It's these quarks. So if we can understand how these quarks behave, we can further understand how these atoms behave. We can further understand how everything else behaves.
Yeah. Different levels of models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But essentially, they all have to follow the same laws because we live in the same, like,
Yeah. Does
physical.
every level follow the same laws as the below levels? Is it like a cumulative thing? Like, is it required to behave at a higher level if a certain behavior is at a lower level?
This is like a philosophical question, and I would be of the belief that yeah.
Right.
Because, like, I mean, if not, there has to be at some point where we consider something other than matter.
Or can something be greater than the sum of its parts?
What does that mean?
Like, can something emerge that takes on a certain quality that is different from the individual parts.
Definitely, but that's still, where is it coming from those parts? And those parts are made from, or are coming from matter, which is the foundational, like, that's the stuff that builds everything in the world. Is that?
Yeah, it's very complicated.
Very, yeah.
But this is great, Alejo, and I'll be out here 2 more times this year, next Wednesday and the Wednesday after. I like to give people a little puzzle piece if they will feel like it to remember the conversation. Feel free to take a color if you want. A little puzzle piece.
Yeah. I gotta get going, man. I have a doctor's appointment right now.
No worries. Yeah, this is fun though.
This was fun.
Hope to see you again.
Yeah, I'm gonna take one of these cards actually.
Sure.
Good talk.
Thanks.
Right here. Cool.
Cool. Have a great day.
See you.
Thank you. See ya.